Hi there, YouTube. Today on the show we're going to be discussing comics, in particular Ross Campbell's Wet Moon. So as comic book films continue to increase in popularity, I'm sure everyone has noticed who's into the hobby right now that there's been a big resurgence in interest and a lot of focus surrounding comic books, particularly superhero comic books. You're probably like me and you've been frustrated when someone said Batman should appear in Avengers. But if you're into the hobby and you already are reading all your superhero comic books, or even if you're not and you're interested in trying something out that's not superhero focused, there's a huge explosion on the indie scene right now. And I think with this, the advent of digital publishing and with the pickup in comic book interest in general, there's a lot of opportunity out there for artists to publish their stuff in indie series. Ross Campbell I was first introduced to in the Glory reboot. Liefeld's Glory was rebooted by Image, and it was much, much better because Liefeld was zing Liefeld. But it was really well done. He did the art on that. And I was actually just browsing a comic book store in London, Ontario, and I found Wet Moon. And I had no idea it was like Ross Campbell from Glory, or I didn't even really check the artist. I was just flipping through. And as with many instances for stuff I enjoy, I later discovered that it was the same artist I had already enjoyed. So Wet Moon is the name of the town that is featured in this story, I guess. Right now it's up to 6 volumes. These are they. They're not in single issues. They're all in like sort of this collected bound trade paperback size format. And it's sort of an ensemble cast of characters. It follows various people in the town, all of them around 20 or so. So these are most of them students in their first year of university, and then their families and their associated characters. It's a really nice art style. That's what first attracted me to it. You get all these like character pinups on the covers that are in color, and then the comic itself is actually in black and white. And really nice panel pacing, nice composition. And if you've seen Ross Campbell's work before, you know something he does really, really well is actually clothing. And he does a fantastic job of making it look real on people, and it's not always just spandex painted on suits. And there are distinctive styles to each character, and while they're all sort of, I guess, a punk goth kind of feel to their outfits, they're all very different. And it's kind of cute. Occasionally, he'll have a character wearing a Glory t-shirt, and there's one character and she's very into comic books. She'll have Xavier t-shirts on, or she gets a Borg tattoo, and he has these nice subtle details that indicate that these characters live in our world, but there's something a little bit off about it. So the primary focus of the storylines in these books are basically character relationships and interactions. And then over the 6 volumes that have come out so far, and there's a 7th in the works if you check out Ross Campbell's website or his blog, there's sort of this overarching mystery. There are murders going on in this town. There are some weird things that aren't quite right. There's an FBI agent in there investigating. And it's really, really fascinating stuff. If you like comics with sort of the focus on the more human element, so if you were into the 90s X-Men soap opera phase of comic books, you might really enjoy this because it focuses again a lot on those relationships, a lot on character interactions, and it paces it out so you're really fascinated by the character interactions, but at the same time it's not slow. It doesn't feel slow, it doesn't feel bogged down in its own plot. Because you have so many different characters that it's jumping around to. They have these helpful pages at the back of every issue that tell you like all the characters that were in there. And they have fan art splash. I'm going to cut some of this. There. One of these pages that show you basically all the featured characters in every volume in case you forgot who anyone was. You can go back and check and see who they are. Again, I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed the story in this. It's kind of neat. It's maybe a little supernatural focused, maybe not. It's hard to say. It's a big emphasis on sort of this punk rock culture, and one of the neat things that it has is these journal entries and blog entries and different just blog block prose pieces from different characters in the book. So one of them has a blog, and the other one has a journal, and one of them has just sort of like an online diary that she maintains, so that you can see sort of their insights without having to have everything meticulously shown to you. Again, you can see the paneling's really nice. It's a very inclusive cast, I suppose. As far as like relationships go, it's not all just the male-female relationship. There's a big emphasis on the friendship relationship between girls, and I think that's very authentically done. And there's also a lot of different homosexual relationships and the examinations of characters and how they feel when they're coming out, or if they're already out, or if their families don't know. So I feel like this is a very authentic coming-of-age story for a lot of these characters. And it's quite enjoyable, and it's quite engrossing. Now, things I didn't like. See what I did there? I went Dark Phoenix, because I did this bad things. I thought it was clever. I wasn't really going to take my shirt off, right? Okay, things I didn't like. As much as I enjoy the block prose pieces, where you look at these characters' emotions and you get to read their journals and stuff, a lot of that sometimes seems a little too authentic to teenagers. So if you are a teenager, I may have just insulted you a little bit by saying I don't like that it's too authentic, but if you are a teenager, this is really something you can identify with. And I read this first when I was like 24, so I was like slightly older than these characters are supposed to be. There's, you know, around the 20, 19, 21, I think one of the oldest ones is 25. So it feels like they're a little mopey and they're a little angsty sometimes, but it's really what it was like to be a teenager. And reading it, you sort of get it like right there, like, oh, I remember thinking like that. And I remember thinking that all my friends had betrayed me, and oh, what was I going to do about this boy? And they have more serious issues as well in the comic that aren't just skin deep. But he does such a great job of portraying this, especially the female anxiety, because it's a male author and a male artist, but he has these great views, insights into women, and he draws women like real women, and there are like thin ones and fat ones, and they have different body shapes, and they're still all like beautiful in their own way, or beautiful to someone, or beautiful to whoever they're with. So that's really nicely done. But it's also this case of like he has this understanding of the female psychology that comes across really well on the page, but also can get sort of frustrating, because if you have a friend that's like that, you're like, I've heard about that drama already, okay? I don't need to read about it. So I think this can appeal to men and women in that way, that it's a male writer and he sort of has that male perspective, but he also nails the female perspective. Which I really appreciate, because there's not a lot of focus on female characters, and as I'm sure you know, that all-female X-Men team that just came out, and the backlash against that in the fanboy community, because they're like, nobody wants to read about that. This is something that doesn't care about that. The other thing that I would critique, perhaps, is that the art style changes a little bit. And it's sort of jarring, I guess, because this has been coming out since 2004 and is still going, so it's, gosh, like 10 years now. So in the first volume, I feel like the art is a little more detailed. And then as you get later and later into the series, it goes a little more anime. Like, the detail stays in the clothes, but just like the style of the eyes on the characters and their faces change a little bit. One character in particular, he sort of just like, he was skinny and then he just like made him fat. And I was like, that's kind of random, but I guess because this is a creator-run project and he's done it over several years, he can do whatever he wants. It's just a little jarring to me as a reader. And the other critique that I have is it takes a really long time to establish the nature of this book. And usually, you know, you can sort of slot something into a category like, this is a fantasy one, this is science fiction, this is just relationships. But they have sort of hinting at, since the first volume, that there may be something not entirely normal about this town, Wet Moon. There may be something supernatural going on. We're not sure. There's like a vigilante in the town. There may be a giant wild boar. But at the same time, you don't know. And I think it's really just in volume 6 that now I'm pretty sure there's something supernatural going on, but it's still kind of uncertain. And that I did find a little bit frustrating, that I'm like, I want to know what to expect from my world. And if if you're not like me in that, you may really enjoy that element. That it's just, he's out there and he's doing his own thing and he's letting the world evolve as it may. But I feel like 6 volumes over 10 years is a very long time to try to determine the nature of your world. Now, I was fortunate enough that I read these all within like a few months because I found out about them like last year, and then I just read them all because I got really, really into it. Now I'm waiting for volume 7. But I imagine if I had read these over that time period and they had been drawn out like that, it may have been a little more difficult. But fortunately, if you just heard about this now, you don't have to do that because I just told you about it. Anyways, it's something that you should check out if you're into indie comics at all. There's a lot of great indie stuff coming out now. I'm going to try and do an indie spotlight every month or so on the channel so you can see something different to read if you're not into superhero comics. But if you are into superhero comics, it's also a great time to be reading, particularly in Marvel. I did read that Thor. Oh my gosh. It was fantastic. Fantastic. God Butcher and God Bomb? Fantastic. But that's not what I'm talking about today. So check out Wet Moon by Ross Campbell. You can get it on Amazon. I'm sure your comic book store can order it in for you, though I haven't seen it on a lot of shelves. It's on Amazon. It's on Chapters. It's out there. It's not hard to get right now, so try it out if you're looking to try something new and different. I'll see you next week. Bye.